I was in high spirits today. I got to sleep in this morning, made myself a hearty breakfast which was unusual, and found $20 in my pocket that I didn't know was there. The most exciting thing that happened today, though, was the phone call I received a few hours ago. The doctor's office called, and I've been approved for hormone treatments to finally start my transition to female. They already sent my script to the pharmacy in my local grocery store and I was on my way to pick it up. I was finally going to go from Kyle to Kylie. I was in my early 20s and a decent-looking guy if I do say so myself. I had short, wiry dark hair and a matching 5 o'clock shadow that I kept neatly off my neck and contoured properly for my face. My eyes were a dull blue, almost gray color, and skin tone pretty fair. I was fairly lean. Not super skinny, just you basic average active person. My skin was normally covered in body hair, but I've been keeping it completely shaven religiously for the past couple of weeks. I got in line at the pharmacy counter and waited patiently for my turn. The pharmacy tech took my last name, wandered over to some bins, and came back with the script I've been waiting my whole life for. I tried to run my card, but the machine kept showing device failure. "Is there a problem with my card?" I asked. The tech shook his head. "No, the machine has been acting up all day." "Here," he said, handing me the bag. "I'm supposed to hold this until the machine is working, but I've seen you around the store pretty regularly. Trade secret, you can ring this up at any old register here." I smiled up at him. "Thanks." It was a small hiccup, but even that didn't slow me down. There were 2 lines open, so I just got in the closet one and waited. The line moved fast enough, as fast as you would expect at least, and I was behind an old lady getting her weekly groceries. She wasn't feeble or decrepit in any way. I pegged her for maybe 60 at the latest. After all her groceries were scanned, the cashier pleasantly looked up from her register. "That'll be $78.30, ma'am." The woman nodded, turning her attention down to her purse and pulled out her money. She counted out the 30 cents, but seemed to only come up with $62 in bills. "Oh shoot, we're going to have to take something off," she grumbled in defeat. "I got it," I announced, handing over the $20 I found in my pocket earlier that day. The old woman turned around to face me. "That's sweet of you, son, but you don't have to do that." "I know," I stated. "I want to pay it forward." "You're a sweet boy," she said with delight in her eyes. I received my change, bid the woman farewell, and paid for my script. I always got a warm feeling doing things like that for strangers. I made my way through the front doors and saw the old woman look up and wave me over. "Can you help me please?" she announced. Odd, since she seemed fully capable of tending to herself, but why not? I made my way over to her. "Sure, what do you need?" "Oh," she said with a laugh. "Nothing. I just wanted to pay it forward, like you said." "Oh, you don't dash, I know." "I want to," she said, throwing my words back at me. "You have a pure heart. Go ahead, make a wish and I'll do everything in my power to grant it." I raised an eyebrow. What?" She casually rummaged through her grocery bags looking for something. "Oh, you don't believe me. I don't blame you," she rambled, pulling out an apple. "Have you ever heard the saying comparing apples to oranges?" I nodded, having no idea where this was going. She waved a hand over the apple. "Well, I prefer to turn apples to oranges." Sparks flashed from her fingertips in various colors. The red of the apple shifted off, closer to yellow, and the shape twisted and morphed, resembling that of an orange. I was speechless. "Oh, what? Believe me now?" she asked, offering me the orange. This was it. This was my moment. Excitement welled up in me as I thought of my wish. It's the only thing I ever wanted. Yes. Please don't judge me, but ever since I was little I always wanted to be female. Please, I wish I was a voluptuous woman. The woman nodded with a small chuckle. No judgment here, that's in my power to do, and waved her hand over my face. It took a few seconds, but eventually energy welled up within me. My crotch tingled first, almost like that of an orgasm. I placed a hand there and firmly applied pressure, feeling my dick shrinking and pulling up into me. It shrunk up, pulling inside as the skin on either side wrapped around it. It started to feel warm down there, and almost immediately I felt juices start to flow as I got wet and turned on by the whole situation. Spreading out from my crotch, the intense feeling radiated. My thighs started to expand and press against my jeans, tearing through. My hips widened, popping the button off the front, and ass billowed outwards. I felt it getting rounder and firmer until I had a gorgeous bubble butt and extremely feminine hips. The surge continued downwards, thickening out my legs and making them shorter. I watched as the world got taller and I was closer to the height of my hero. My feet shrunk and I could feel them fidgeting in place with my large shoes loose around them. At the same time, the energy reached my stomach, flattening it and shrinking in my waist so my hips flared outwards. My insides turned with a growing warm sensation. I bit my bottom lip and closed my eyes, placing a hand on the lower part of my stomach, instinctively knowing that my baby maker was in business and how desperately I wanted to conceive child. As it moved upward, my shoulders shrunk in and chest started expanding. I looked down to see my feet becoming eclipsed by my growing bust. My tight shirt started to tear from the pressure. I wasn't entirely sure, but I think I let out a squeal. I raised both my hands to them and grabbed them without reserve. Tremors rippled through my body from the sensitivity, and my nipple hardened poking into my hands. They were still growing, and I would venture a guess that they were at least D cups, maybe even DD. My panting and moans started to become elevated. I grabbed my throat with one hand, feeling my Adam's apple shrivel away and disappear. The skin on my neck was silky and smooth. I ran the back of my hands alongside it, my nails tickling me. Speaking of nails, I looked at them to see them already growing and my fingers slimming down. My muscle tone subsided and left behind slender effeminate arms. My face began twisting. I couldn't see it, but I could feel my square jaw shaving down and facial hair retract into me. I raised a hand and rubbed what used to be my 5 o'clock shadow and instead was met with smooth, baby bottom skin. My lashes extended slightly more into my peripherals, and lips grew so they pouted and touched while at rest. My short, wiry hair exploded outwards, flying in all directions until it was halfway down my torso. Running my hands through it felt almost like running a hand through water. I was absolutely delighted. I spun around in my torn and unfit clothes, looking at myself. Thank you, thank you, thank you, I rambled on, leaping into the air and clasping my hands together. Of course, dearie, she said with a smile. But those clothes, I can fix that for you. What do you want? I thought for a moment. Yoga pants were always sexy, especially with a large firm ass like this, but I could get those any day. What I really wanted was a form-fitting skirt and low-cut blouse with some flats. Without even saying anything, she waved her hand again. It will be done. My torn t-shirt ripped further at the bust, hemming itself to form a deep V-neck plunge. The color shifted from the darker blue to a more pastel shade, and the bottom flowed out and waved in the breeze. My pants stretched out, hemming the tears, and shifting into a silkier, softer fabric. The color shifted to form baby blue and white horizontal stripes to complement the already dark blue that was already in place. My socks shrunk away, shriveling up until nothing was left, and shoes became smaller until they hugged my feet. My laces melded into the shoe, and holes appeared on top, exposing the tops of my feet. Straps wrapped around my ankle and up my shin a little, and heels pushed lightly off the ground to give only a slight amount of height. My boxers underneath slid up my thigh, shifting to silk lace and pressing against my warm slit below. My chest also started to lift on its own as silk manifested itself around them and held them in place. Straps ran up and over my shoulders and clasped in the back. My hands ran up and down my body as I bounced in place and watched my tits jiggle. I began to weep, wiping tears from my eyes as I moved in to give my savior a hug. "Thank you so much," I managed to get out between sobs. She returned the embrace. "Of course, my dear. Of course." I bid her farewell, running to my car and leaping inside. I pulled the rearview mirror so I could see myself. I pressed my fingers against my face, giggling like a schoolgirl. I was a fucking knockout. I looked down at my chest, grabbing it and squeezing, fondling and shaking them in my grip. The sensation was alien and strange, but felt so right. For the first time in forever, I felt comfortable in my own skin. Still clutching my chest, I looked out my driver's side window to see a man about my age staring at me. I immediately let go, the weight of my chest dropping and tugging on the bra straps, and looked down at the steering wheel, blushing in embarrassment. I needed to get home, someplace more private, to explore this gift. I readjusted the seat and mirrors for my new height, turned on the engine, and headed out. Admittedly, I was speeding and driving a little too erratically, but I was so damn excited. In my haste, I accidentally cut someone off, who slammed on their brakes, and I could see them flicking me off in my rear view. I coyly raised a hand to signal apology, and their car lurched forward, screeching next to me as we approached a light. His passenger window was down and he was screaming at me. I lowered mine to apologize, but before I could say anything, all I heard was, "So just because you're so fucking cute you think you can drive however you want? Let's see how you like this." He raised a hand and sparks flew out, striking me in the chest. My beautiful rack started to deflate, shrinking and collapsing in on itself until all that was left was my previously flat pecs. My shoulders widened, stretching out the blouse a little, and hair sprung out on my arms as if I haven't shaved them in weeks. My face popped as my jawline regained its former square contour and a full beard erupted forth. My hair retreated back, losing its soft volume and returning to its wiry state. My dainty fingers bulged, getting thicker and more sausage-like, my nails retracting in. My stomach churned as I felt my precious womb fade away. My hips popped and shrank, but deflating with it. My beautiful, unused clit pulsed and pushed forward, growing and growing until I had a thick, hard cock. Admittedly bigger than it was before. My thick thighs shrunk down, gaining their thick muscle tone, and hair growing back. My feet grew out, straining against the flats and tearing through them. I pulled the rear view at me again, looking back at the familiar face I've grown up with and crying. Everything was undone. Everything. I turned to the asshole next to me with the serious road rage as he flicked me off. "Have fun trying to cheat your way out of tickets now, fuck face," and screeched off through the red light and into the distance. I looked at my bag on the seat next to me. Well, at least I had my hormones.